You ever have that moment where your entire life just shatters? My name is Michael Whitlock, and I'm 36 years old. I was a staff sergeant with the 101st Airborne, served my country with honor through 2 deployments. I came home from Afghanistan 2 weeks early, 8 months of sand and blood behind me, thinking I'd surprise my wife Emily. Instead, I walked into our bedroom and found her in bed with Francis McGraw, my best friend since we were 12. The rage that hit me wasn't just anger. It was a cold, focused clarity that turned my hands into weapons. I beat Francis bloody right there, cracked the drywall with his skull, broke his nose while Emily screamed. But that was just the opening move. I didn't stop at violence. I destroyed them both. Legally, socially, financially. Made them pay for every betrayed vow, every broken promise. If you've ever been stabbed in the back by someone you trusted completely, this story is for you. Some people say revenge is hollow. They're wrong. When it's paired with justice, when the guilty actually face consequences, it's the most satisfying feeling in the world. Before I go any further, let me know in the comments where in the world you are watching from. And make sure to subscribe because tomorrow I will share a story you don't want to miss. But let me start from the beginning. I landed at Fort Campbell on a Tuesday afternoon, the Kentucky heat hitting me like a wall the second I stepped off the transport. After 8 months in Afghanistan, it felt like paradise. Command had cut my deployment short by 2 weeks. Exceptional performance on a high-risk operation, they said. I didn't tell Emily. I wanted it to be a surprise. The whole drive from Fort Campbell to our house in Clarksville, I was grinning like an idiot. 6 years we'd been married. High school sweethearts who'd made it work through 2 deployments, through all the separations and stress. Emily was 28, working as a nurse at the local hospital. We'd talked about starting a family when I got back. Kids, a normal life, everything I'd been fighting for over there. I pulled into our driveway at 3:47 p.m. I remember checking my watch, thinking about how surprised she'd be when I walked through that door. There was a black Ford F-150 parked in the driveway, Francis McGraw's truck, my best friend since middle school. We'd grown up together, played football together, gotten into more trouble than I could count. I figured he was helping Emily with something around the house, maybe fixing the leaky faucet she'd mentioned in her last email. The front door was unlocked. I walked in quietly, wanting to maximize the surprise. The house was silent except for sounds coming from upstairs. At first I thought maybe they were moving furniture or something. Then I heard Emily's voice, breathy and urgent, saying Francis's name. My blood went cold. Then it went burning hot. I took the stairs 3 at a time. Our bedroom door was half open, and there they were. My wife of 6 years naked in our bed, the bed I'd bought, in the house I paid the mortgage on with my best friend on top of her. They were so into it they didn't even hear me coming. "What the fuck is this?" I roared. They both screamed. Francis rolled off, scrambling for his pants. Emily grabbed the sheet, her face going white as death. But I wasn't looking at her. I was looking at Francis. And every bit of combat training, every ounce of controlled violence I'd learned in the Army, was flooding through my veins. "Michael," Francis started, hands up. I didn't let him finish. I grabbed him by the throat and slammed him against the wall so hard the drywall cracked. He was a big guy, maybe 220 pounds. But I had rage and training on my side. I drove my fist into his face. Once, twice, 3 times. Blood exploded from his nose, spattering across the wall, across my uniform. "Michael, stop!" Emily was screaming, but her voice sounded like it was coming from underwater. Francis tried to fight back, throwing a wild punch that glanced off my shoulder. Big mistake. I dropped him with a body shot that folded him in half, then grabbed a fistful of his hair and drove his face into my knee. More blood. His lips split open like a crushed grape. He went down hard on the bedroom floor, gasping for air. "You piece of shit," I snarled, standing over him. "I trusted you. I called you my brother." "I'm sorry, man. I kicked him in the ribs. Not hard enough to break anything. I had just enough control for that. But hard enough to shut him up and make him feel a fraction of the pain tearing through my chest." Emily was sobbing now, still wrapped in that sheet, mascara running down her face in black streaks. "Michael, please, let me explain." I turned on her and she actually flinched. Good. She should be scared. Explain, I said, my voice deadly quiet now. Explain what? How long you've been fucking my best friend in our bed? How many times while I was getting shot at in Afghanistan? It happened. I was lonely, and Francis was here, and what? I roared. And you decided your marriage vows meant nothing? Francis was trying to crawl toward his clothes. I grabbed him by the back of his neck and hauled him up. His face was a mess, blood pouring from his nose and mouth, one eye already swelling shut. Get out of my house, I said quietly. Get your clothes and get the fuck out. And if I ever see you again, Francis, I will finish what I started. Do you understand me? He nodded frantically, grabbing his jeans and shirt with shaking hands. He stumbled down the stairs, still half naked, and I heard the front door slam 30 seconds later. I turned back to Emily. How long? She hesitated, and that hesitation told me everything. 3 months, she finally whispered. 3 months. A quarter of my deployment. My hands were shaking, not from fear, but from the effort of not putting my fist through the wall. Listen to me very carefully, I said, my voice ice cold. I'm filing for divorce. Tomorrow you're going to find somewhere else to live. And I'm going to make sure everyone, your family, our friends, everyone we know, understands exactly what you did. I pulled out my phone and took several photos of the disheveled bed, her clothes on the floor mixed with Francis's. She tried to protest, but I gave her a look that shut her up immediately. You have until noon tomorrow to be gone, I said. If you're still here, I'll have the police remove you. Michael, please. I walked out of that bedroom, out of that house, and I didn't look back. My knuckles were split and bleeding. Francis's blood was on my hands, my uniform, and my mind was already forming a plan. A systematic, methodical plan to destroy both of them completely. I got in my truck and drove straight to Stephen Parker's apartment, my knuckles leaving blood smears on the steering wheel. Stephen took one look at me, bloody knuckles, face like thunder, and stepped aside without a word. His apartment was small but clean, the kind of place soldiers kept when they didn't want the hassle of a house. He gestured toward the couch. You want to talk about it? He asked. I sat down hard, my hands still shaking. I caught Emily in bed with Francis. Stephen's eyes went wide. Francis McGraw? You're Francis? Not my anything anymore, I said. The words came out flat, dead. Vilma appeared from the kitchen, Stephen's wife, a sharp-eyed woman who worked as a paralegal downtown. She looked at my knuckles, then at my face, and her expression shifted through shock, anger, disgust, before settling on something harder. What happened? She asked, sitting across from me. I told them everything. The surprise homecoming, the sounds from upstairs finding them together. Francis's face under my fists. Emily's pathetic excuses. 3 months they'd been doing this while I was getting shot at in Kandahar. Vilma's face went rigid. You need a lawyer, she said immediately. A good one, the kind who doesn't play nice. I need more than a lawyer, I said. I need to destroy them both. She pulled out her phone. I know someone. Daniel Hernandez. He's a shark in a suit, handles the ugliest divorces in Tennessee. Let me call him. 10 minutes later, she'd set up an appointment for 8 a.m. the next morning. I spent that night on Stephen's couch staring at the ceiling. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw them together. Emily's face, Francis's blood, the cracked drywall. But instead of just replaying the rage, my mind was working, planning. Tennessee divorce law, asset protection, character witnesses. I was turning betrayal into strategy, and it felt good. Focused. The next morning, I met Daniel at his office downtown. He was mid-40s, lean, with eyes that missed nothing. I laid out everything. The affair, the confrontation, how I'd beaten Francis bloody, the photos I'd taken. Daniel made notes, his expression never changing. Then he looked up. Francis could press assault charges. Let him try, I said. I came home to find him in my bed with my wife. Any jury would call it temporary passion. Besides, Francis won't want that kind of publicity. Daniel smiled, thin, predatory. I like how you think. He tapped his pen against his notepad. Here's what you need to know. Tennessee is fault-based for divorce. Adultery is grounds. We file immediately, document everything, and Emily doesn't get a dime more than legally required. What about Francis? Daniel leaned back. Did you know he's married? My blood went cold. What? Francis McGraw. Married 4 years ago to a woman named Riza Jang, teacher at Clarksville Elementary. I looked him up while you were driving over. I sat there, stunned. Francis had mentioned getting married in emails while I was deployed, but our schedules never lined up for me to meet her. I'd figured I'd meet his wife eventually, and the entire time, he was screwing Emily behind both our backs. He's married, I repeated slowly. That son of a bitch is married. Makes it better, Daniel said, or worse, depending on whose side you're on. Adultery affects property distribution, alimony, everything in Tennessee. And if you want real revenge, Michael, we make sure his wife knows exactly what kind of man she married. Do it, I said immediately. I want both of them destroyed, Emily and Francis both. Daniel nodded. I'll file the papers this afternoon, citing adultery. Tennessee has a 60-day waiting period, but we can make Emily's life extremely difficult in the meantime. We spent another hour building the case. When I left his office, I felt something I hadn't felt since finding them together. Control. I drove to my house at noon just like I'd told Emily. She was loading bags into her car, eyes red and swollen from crying all night. Michael, she started. Don't, I said. Leave your key on the counter. Where am I supposed to go? Not my problem anymore. Maybe Francis will take you in. I paused. Oh wait, he's married too. Did you know that, Emily? Or were you just a side piece for both of us? Her face crumpled. I didn't know he was married. I laughed, bitter and cold. You didn't bother to ask? Perfect. You're served, by the way. Divorce papers arrive tomorrow. I don't have money for a lawyer. Not my problem. You should have thought about that before you spread your legs for Francis. Now get out of my house. She left 20 minutes later. I watched her taillights disappear, then walked through every room. I stripped the bed, threw everything in garbage bags, sheets, comforter, pillows, all of it. Then I called a cleaning service and scheduled a deep clean for the bedroom. That evening I made the call that would set everything else in motion. The phone rang 3 times. Hello? Is this Riza Jang? Yes, who's this? My name is Michael Whitlock. I'm Francis's friend. We need to talk about your husband. A pause. Is Francis okay? In a manner of speaking, I said. Can we meet tomorrow morning? This needs to be in person. We agreed on a coffee shop at 10 a.m. I got to the coffee shop 20 minutes early, ordered black coffee, found a corner booth where I could see the door. My mind kept circling back to the photographs on my phone, the evidence that would blow Francis's life apart the same way he'd blown mine. Riza walked in at 10 a.m. exactly. Petite woman, maybe 5'3", dark hair pulled back in a ponytail. She looked around nervously, clutching her purse like it might shield her from whatever I was about to say. I waved her over. She sat down across from me, eyes wide. What's this about? She asked. You said Francis is hurt? Emotionally, probably, I said. Physically, I hurt him, beat him up pretty badly yesterday afternoon. Her eyes went wider. You what? Why would you? Because I came home from Afghanistan 2 weeks early and found him in bed with my wife. The color drained from her face. She just stared at me, mouth opening and closing. No words came out. That's not possible, she finally whispered. Francis wouldn't. I have photos. I pulled out my phone. Not of them in the act. I was too busy beating him to think about pictures then, but of the aftermath, the bed, their clothes. Everything you need to see. I showed her. The rumpled sheets, Emily's blouse tangled with Francis's jeans on the floor, the crack in the drywall where I'd slammed him. Riza started crying. Not loud, dramatic sobs, quiet, devastated tears that somehow hurt worse to watch. The kind of crying that comes from something breaking deep inside you. How long? She whispered. Emily said 3 months. But who knows if that's the truth? She put her face in her hands. I waited, giving her space. Didn't offer comfort because I didn't know her, and honestly, I was barely holding myself together. When she looked up again, something had changed. Her jaw was set. Her eyes had gone hard. "I want to help you," she said. "I want to help you destroy both of them. Whatever you need." I felt something shift. I'd come here to deliver bad news, do the right thing by telling her. But this was better. "You sure?" I asked. "Because once we start down this road, I'm sure." Her voice didn't waver. Francis built his whole life in this town, his reputation, his job, his family connections. I've lived here my entire life. I know everyone, his family, our friends, people at his work. And I'm going to make sure everyone knows exactly what kind of man he is. We spent the next hour planning. Riza told me about Francis's job as a construction foreman, how he was up for a promotion to site manager, how his boss valued loyalty and family values, how that promotion would evaporate the second his boss knew what Francis had done. She told me about his parents, church-going people who'd be horrified, his brother Tommy, who had strict views about marriage, the tight-knit community of Clarksville where reputation meant everything. I told her about Emily's position at the hospital, the military wives groups Emily belonged to, how the military community in Clarksville wouldn't tolerate a woman who cheated on a deployed soldier. "I'm filing for divorce immediately," Riza said, citing adultery. "In Tennessee, that affects everything. Property distribution, alimony. Francis is going to lose half of what he owns, maybe more. My lawyer's already filed mine," I said. "Same grounds. Emily's going to walk away with almost nothing." "Good." Riza's voice was steel. "They deserve nothing." We exchanged phone numbers, agreed to coordinate our divorces for maximum impact, share information about Francis and Emily's movements, their attempts to salvage their reputations. "I'll tell Francis's family this week," Riza said. "His parents, his brother. They deserve to know what their son did, what their brother did." "I'm telling everyone at Fort Campbell," I said. "Emily won't be welcome in any military circles after this." Riza nodded. She pulled out a tissue, wiped her eyes. The tears had stopped. Now there was just cold determination. "Thank you," she said, "for telling me the truth, for not letting me stay ignorant while everyone else knew. You deserved better than what he did to you," I said. We both did. We stood up to leave. At the door, Riza turned to me. "2 days," she said. "We'll meet again in 2 days. Compare notes after I file." 2 days, I agreed. We walked out together. Two people who'd been destroyed by the same betrayal, now united in making sure the people who'd hurt us paid the full price. 2 weeks had passed since I'd walked into that coffee shop and told Riza the truth. 2 weeks of coordination, strategy, and watching both Francis and Emily's lives start to crumble. Riza filed for divorce 3 days after our first meeting. Her lawyer was a guy named Marcus Thorndale. Sharp, aggressive, everything Daniel was for me. Tennessee's adultery laws gave us both serious leverage, and we were using every bit of it. But the legal destruction was just one front. Riza and I were fighting this war on multiple battlefields. She started with Francis's family. Called his parents first, Doug and Margaret McGraw, church-going people who'd raised their sons with old-fashioned values about marriage and commitment. Riza told them everything. Francis's mom cried on the phone. His dad demanded to speak with Francis immediately, then called back an hour later to tell Riza how ashamed they were. Margaret said she didn't raise a man who'd destroyed 2 marriages, Riza told me over coffee. There was grim satisfaction in her voice. Doug told Francis he's a disgrace to the McGraw name. Next came Tommy, Francis's brother. Tommy had always been the responsible one. Married, 3 kids, coached Little League. He took one look at the evidence Riza showed him and cut Francis off completely. Tommy said he doesn't want his kids around Francis anymore, Riza said. Said Francis doesn't represent the kind of man he wants them to learn from. I watched Francis's support system collapse in real time. His family, the people who were supposed to stand by him no matter what, wanted nothing to do with him. Then Riza went after his job. Francis worked construction, was up for promotion to site manager. Good pay, solid benefits, a career he'd built over 15 years. His boss, a guy named Walter Brennan, valued loyalty and family values. Put those words right on the company website. Riza didn't tell Walter directly. Too obvious. Instead, she mentioned it to Walter's wife, Sandra, who she knew from community events. Let Sandra tell Walter. Let the information spread naturally. Within a week, Francis's promotion was under review. The official reason was performance concerns. The real reason? Walter didn't want a known cheater representing his company. Meanwhile, I was handling Emily's destruction. The hospital where she worked couldn't fire her for adultery. That'd be a lawsuit waiting to happen. But they couldn't stop people from talking either. And in a hospital, people talk constantly. I made sure the right information reached the right ears. Emily had cheated on her deployed husband with his best friend, a soldier serving in Afghanistan. The nurses talked, the doctors whispered. Emily's work environment became unbearable practically overnight, but the military community hit her hardest. You don't betray a deployed soldier in a military town like Clarksville and get away with it. The wives of other servicemen knew what Emily had done within days. She got shunned at the grocery store, kicked out of a support group for military spouses. One woman, Rachel Dempsey, whose husband was deployed with my unit, actually confronted Emily in public, called her a disgrace to military families. Our mutual friends chose sides. Overwhelmingly, they chose mine. Daniel was handling the legal warfare beautifully. Emily tried to claim she deserved half the house equity. We'd been paying the mortgage together for 6 years after all. Daniel destroyed that argument in court, showing she'd violated the marriage contract through adultery. The judge agreed. Minimal equity for Emily. The house was mine. My truck, my tools, my savings, all protected. Daniel made sure of it. She's going to walk away with almost nothing, Daniel told me during one meeting. Maybe $15,000 in total assets. That's it. Riza's lawyer was equally effective. Francis had brought serious assets into his marriage. His truck, his professional-grade tools, savings he'd accumulated. Under Tennessee law, Riza was entitled to a portion. Her lawyer made sure that portion hurt. Marcus says Francis is looking at losing close to $60,000 in the settlement, Riza told me. His truck, half his tools, a chunk of his savings. Good, I said. He deserves worse. Our meetings had become regular. Twice a week at first, just comparing notes, coordinating moves. But somewhere along the line, they'd become something more. We talked about more than revenge. About our lives, our jobs, the things we'd lost. Riza told me about teaching, about her students, about the master's degree in education administration she'd been considering. I told her about the Army, about Afghanistan, about the promotion to Sergeant First Class I was up for. 6 weeks after I'd found Emily and Francis together, Riza and I met for dinner instead of coffee. A small Italian place on the edge of town, quiet, intimate, the kind of place you take someone you're interested in, not just strategizing with. We talked for 3 hours. The food was good, but I barely tasted it. I was too focused on her. I never wanted kids with Francis, she admitted over wine. I told myself it was timing, money, all the logical reasons, but deep down I think I knew something was wrong, that he wasn't solid enough to build a family with. I wanted kids with Emily, I said. Talked about it constantly. Thank God we never got around to it. Can you imagine how much worse this would be with children involved? She reached across the table and squeezed my hand. The contact felt electric. You're a good man, Michael. You didn't deserve what she did to you. Neither did you, I said. You deserved better than Francis. We sat there, hands connected, and something shifted between us. Not love, not yet, but possibility. Real, genuine possibility. And I realized that while I was destroying Francis and Emily, I was also building something new, something that might actually be worth keeping. The divorces finalized within 2 days of each other. Mine came through first, 60 days after Daniel filed, exactly as Tennessee law required. The judge signed off on everything. Emily walked away with minimal assets, maybe $15,000 total. The house was mine. My truck, my tools, my savings, all protected. Her reputation, completely destroyed. Riza's divorce finalized 48 hours later. Francis lost close to $60,000 in the settlement. His truck, most of his professional-grade construction tools, a huge chunk of his savings. Tennessee's equitable distribution laws hit him hard. But the money wasn't the worst part for either of them. They'd both lost what actually mattered: respect, friendship, community standing. Francis's construction company let him go about 3 weeks after his divorce finalized. Officially, they cited performance issues. Unofficially, everyone knew it was the scandal. His boss couldn't have a foreman who'd destroyed his credibility like that. Emily transferred to a hospital 2 counties over. She couldn't handle working in Clarksville anymore. The constant whispers, the judgment, the way people looked at her. She just left. I heard through the grapevine, Stephen's wife Vilma actually, that Emily and Francis tried to make a relationship work after their divorces. The 2 cheaters together, trying to build something real. It lasted 3 weeks. Turns out a relationship built on betrayal and selfishness doesn't have much of a foundation. Who knew? Meanwhile, Riza and I had started dating. Officially dating, not just strategizing over coffee. We took it slow. Both of us were carrying damage from our marriages. But there was something real between us. Something genuine. Mutual respect. Understanding. Honesty. Everything our first marriages had lacked. 8 months after I'd found Emily and Francis in my bed, Riza and I were having dinner at her place. She'd kept the house in the divorce settlement. We were talking about her master's program. She'd enrolled in education administration when my phone rang. Unknown number. I almost didn't answer. Michael Whitlock, a man's voice. Speaking. This is Officer Calvin Wright with Clarksville PD. I'm calling about Francis McGraw. He's been in an accident. My stomach dropped. Is he alive? Yes, but he's in bad shape. DUI. Hit a tree out on Highway 79. He's at Tenova Hospital now. He's been asking for you. I looked at Riza. She'd heard enough to know something was wrong. Francis is in the hospital, I said. DUI, car accident. He's asking for me. Are you going? Her voice was careful. I thought about it. Part of me wanted to ignore it completely, let Francis suffer alone. But another part, maybe the better part, knew I needed to see this through. Close the chapter completely. Yeah, I said. I'm going. You want to come? She hesitated, then nodded. Yeah, I do. We drove to Tenova in silence. Francis was in the ICU, broken ribs, collapsed lung, severe lacerations from the impact. The nurse said he'd be okay eventually, but he looked like hell, worse than when I'd beaten him 8 months ago. When we walked into his room together, his eyes went wide. Seeing me and Riza as a couple clearly wasn't what he'd expected. Michael, he croaked. Riza. I'm sorry. For everything. I know sorry doesn't fix anything, but you're right, I said flatly. It doesn't. So why am I here, Francis? What do you want? He coughed, wincing from the broken ribs. I wanted you to know that I destroyed my own life. Everything I had, everything I cared about, I threw it all away for nothing. Emily and I couldn't make it work. I lost my job, my house, my marriage. My family won't talk to me. My brother won't return my calls, and it's all my fault. I just wanted you to know that I know that you were right to do what you did. I looked down at him, broken, pathetic, suffering every consequence of his choices, and I felt nothing. No satisfaction, no anger, just emptiness. I'm not going to tell you I forgive you, I said, because I don't. What you did to me, what you and Emily both did, is unforgivable. But I'm also not going to waste any more energy hating you. You're not worth it, Francis. You destroyed yourself more effectively than I ever could have. I turned toward the door, Riza's hand in mine. I hope you get better, I said without looking back. And I hope you learn something from this, but whether you do or not, that's not my problem anymore. We walked out, and I didn't look back. Several months passed after that hospital visit. Francis's DUI brought the consequences you'd expect: suspended license, mandatory AA meetings, probation. But here's the kicker. His insurance had lapsed, another casualty of his financial spiral, so he was looking at tens of thousands in medical debt from that accident. He'd moved into some crappy apartment in the worst part of Clarksville, working odd jobs just to keep the lights on. Day labor. anything he could get. Emily wasn't doing much better. That hospital 2 counties over let her go during a restructuring. At least that's what they called it. I suspected her reputation had followed her even there. Small towns talk, and nurses gossip faster than anyone. Last I heard, she was working at a nursing home for half her previous salary, living in a studio apartment. Alone. The affair had cost them everything. Exactly like I'd promised. Meanwhile, my life? Actually getting better. Better than it'd been even before the betrayal, if I'm being honest. I got promoted to Sergeant First Class. My CO called me into his office, and I figured I was in for some kind of lecture. Instead, he shook my hand and told me I'd handled a terrible situation with honor and dignity. "You didn't let it break you, Whitlock," he said. "You protected yourself. You did what needed doing. But you never let it turn you into something ugly. That's the mark of a real soldier." Coming from him, that meant something. Riza left teaching and went back to school for her master's in education administration. She was thriving. Happier than I'd ever seen her. We'd moved in together after I sold my house. Too many bad memories in those walls, and found a place that was ours. Fresh start for both of us. We talked about the future. Marriage maybe when we were both ready. Kids eventually. Building something real and lasting. One evening, about 18 months after I'd found Emily and Francis together, we were having dinner when Riza's phone buzzed. She glanced at it and her expression shifted. "It's Emily," she said. "She's asking to meet with me. Says she has something important to tell me." I looked up from my plate. "You going to meet her?" "I don't know." She set the phone down. Part of me thinks I should just ignore it, but part of me is curious what she could possibly have to say at this point. "It's your call," I said. "But if you go, I'm coming with you." She smiled at that. "I was hoping you'd say that." 2 days later, we met Emily at the same coffee shop where I'd first told Riza about the affair. Felt fitting somehow. Closing the circle. Emily looked rough, thinner than I remembered, older. Life had worn her down in a way 8 months of Afghanistan never touched me. She was alone. "Thank you for meeting me," she said quietly, looking between us. "I know I have no right to ask anything of either of you, but I needed to say some things." "So say them," I replied. My voice was neutral. No anger left, just nothing. "I'm sorry." Tears started flowing down her face. "I'm sorry for what I did to you, Michael. For destroying our marriage, for betraying you while you were serving our country. I was selfish and stupid, and I threw away the best thing in my life. And Riza, I'm sorry for my part in hurting you too. I didn't even know Francis was married at first, but when I found out I should have stopped. Instead, I kept going. I was wrong." She wiped her eyes with a napkin. "I'm not asking for forgiveness. I know I don't deserve that. I needed you both to hear me say it, to know that I understand what I did, and that I'm sorry." Riza and I exchanged glances. Finally, I spoke. "Emily, I appreciate you saying that, I do. But apologies don't undo damage. They don't rebuild trust, they don't restore what was lost. You made choices, deliberate, repeated choices, that destroyed our marriage and hurt multiple people. And you're living with the consequences of those choices now, just like Francis is." "I know," she whispered. I leaned forward. "Here's what I want you to understand. Riza and I, we're happy. Really happy. We've built something genuine, something based on honesty and respect. And in a weird way, we have you and Francis to thank for that. Because if you two hadn't betrayed us, we never would have found each other. So thank you, I guess, for showing us what we didn't want and helping us find what we do." Emily flinched like I'd slapped her. Riza squeezed my hand under the table, and we stood up together. We left Emily sitting there alone, and we didn't look back. 2 years after I found Emily and Francis in our bed, I asked Riza to marry me. We were hiking at Montgomery Bell State Park. Nothing fancy. Just the two of us on a trail overlooking the lake. I'd been carrying the ring in my pocket for 3 weeks, waiting for the right moment. And when she stopped to catch her breath, smiling at me with the afternoon sun catching her hair, I knew. I got down on one knee right there on the dirt path. "Riza, I love you, I trust you, and I want to build the rest of my life with you. Will you marry me?" She said yes before I even finished the question. We got married 4 months later in a small ceremony at a historic chapel in downtown Nashville. Maybe 30 people total. Close friends, family who mattered. Stephen and Vilma were there, of course. They'd become like family to us. Stephen stood as my best man and Vilma was one of Riza's bridesmaids. When Stephen shook my hand before the ceremony, he didn't say much. Just, "You earned this, brother." You really did. The wedding was everything my first one wasn't. Genuine, joyful, filled with people who actually cared about us, who'd watched us build something real from the wreckage Francis and Emily left behind. I remembered my wedding to Emily, the big church ceremony, 200 guests, half of them people I barely knew. Everyone smiling, but it all feeling hollow somehow, like we were performing being happy rather than actually being happy. This was different. When Riza walked down that aisle and I saw her face, I felt something I'd never felt with Emily. Complete certainty. No doubts, no questions. Just absolute trust. We bought a house together 3 months after the wedding. Nothing huge. 3 bedrooms, decent yard, good neighborhood. But it was ours. New memories, no ghosts. My career hit another milestone around the same time. I made Sergeant First Class, and my commander offered me a training position at Fort Campbell. No more deployments. No more months overseas wondering what was happening back home. I could finally build a stable life without that constant threat of separation hanging over everything. "You've earned the chance to stay put," my commander told me. "Train the next generation. Be present for your family." Riza finished her master's in education administration that same year. She landed an assistant principal position at Clarksville Middle School and absolutely thrived. She'd come home energized, telling me about programs she was developing, teachers she was mentoring. She'd found her purpose. We started talking seriously about kids. Both of us wanted them, but we were careful about it. Thoughtful. We'd both been burned badly, and we wanted to make sure we were building something solid first. "I want to have children with you," Riza told me one night. "But I want to do it right, when we're both ready, when we know we can give them the stability they deserve." "We've got time," I said. "And when it happens, it'll be right." Life was good. Really, genuinely good. I still heard things about Emily and Francis through Clarksville's social network. Small town, you know? People talk. Emily was still at that nursing home 2 counties over. Still alone. I heard she'd tried dating, online apps, setups from coworkers, but it never went anywhere. Turned out, when potential partners learned about her past, they walked away. Actions have consequences that don't just disappear with time. Francis was worse off. Working as a day laborer now, his construction career completely destroyed. Depression, financial problems, medical debt he'd be paying off for years. His family had mostly cut ties. His brother Tommy still wouldn't speak to him. Both of them had tried reaching out to me at various points. Francis after the accident, Emily at the coffee shop. A couple other attempts through mutual acquaintances. I'd been civil but crystal clear every time. I'd moved on. They were parts of a past I had zero interest in revisiting. One evening, Riza and I were sitting on our back porch watching the sunset. She was curled against me, my arm around her shoulders. The Tennessee sky was doing that thing it does, orange and pink bleeding into purple. "You ever think about how different things could have been?" she asked. "If Francis and Emily had never, you know." "Sometimes," I admitted. "But honestly, I think this is better. I thought I was happy with Emily, but it was nothing compared to what we have. She was who I thought I was supposed to be with." "You're who I'm actually meant to be with. You're getting sappy in your old age," she teased. "I'm 40, that's not old," says the man with gray hairs coming in. I kissed the top of her head. "Gray hairs from stress you helped eliminate." We sat in comfortable silence for a while. Then Riza said, "I saw Francis yesterday, at the grocery store." I tensed slightly. "Yeah? He say anything?" "He tried to. I just walked past him. I'm done giving him any emotional energy. He's nothing to me now." "Good," I said. "That's exactly how it should be." And it was. Francis and Emily had become ghosts. Reminders of a painful past, sure, but with absolutely no power over our present or future. They'd destroyed their own lives far more effectively than I could have through any revenge scheme. All I'd done was make sure everyone knew the truth and protect myself legally and financially. Daniel had handled that brilliantly. The real revenge wasn't the divorces or the ruined reputations or the lost jobs and homes. The real revenge was this. I was genuinely happy, building a beautiful life with someone who valued me, and they were both miserable, living with the consequences of their selfishness. Karma, justice, revenge, all rolled into one. I was living proof that sometimes the best revenge is thriving while the people who wronged you are left behind in the rubble they created for themselves. "Hey," Riza said, pulling me from my thoughts. "What are you thinking about?" I looked down at her. "How lucky I am. How grateful I am that you were willing to take a chance on a hurt, angry soldier with serious trust issues. You were never bitter," she said firmly. "Hurt, yes. Angry, definitely. But you never let it make you bitter. That's what I loved about you from the start. You fought back, you protected yourself, but you never let them turn you into something ugly. You never let the hatred consume you." "That's because I had you," I said honestly. "You reminded me there were still good people in the world. That not everyone was like them." She shifted, turning to face me more fully. "We saved each other, I think." "Yeah," I agreed. "We did." She kissed me softly, and I wrapped both arms around her. As the sun dipped below the horizon, I thought about everything that had happened. The betrayal that shattered my world, the pain that felt like it would never end, the rage that could have destroyed me if I'd let it, the systematic destruction of two people who threw away everything, marriages, friendships, respect, careers, for selfish gratification, for 3 months of sneaking around behind everyone's backs. And then the unexpected gift that came from all that destruction. Finding someone real, someone genuine, someone actually worth building a life with. Emily and Francis had taught me what I didn't want. Riza showed me what I did want. Every morning I woke up next to her. Every moment of happiness we shared, every plan we made for our future together. All of it was proof that Francis and Emily had failed. They'd tried to break me. They'd wanted to destroy me, whether they'd thought about it in those terms or not. Instead, they'd freed me to find something infinitely better. "You know what the funny thing is?" I said quietly. "If someone had told me 2 years ago that I'd end up here, married to you, genuinely happy, building the life I actually wanted, I wouldn't have believed them. I thought Emily was it, my one shot. And now? Now I know she was just practice. The rough draft. You're the real thing." Riza laughed softly. "That's the sappiest thing you've ever said. Doesn't make it less true." We sat there as darkness settled over Tennessee, the last traces of sunset fading into night. The air was warm, crickets starting their evening chorus. Riza's head rested against my shoulder, my hand in hers. This was the best revenge of all. Not the pain I'd inflicted on Francis that first day. Not the legal warfare Daniel had waged. Not even watching their lives crumble under the weight of their own choices. The best revenge was this. Genuine happiness. A real partnership. A future worth looking forward to. They'd wanted to break me. Instead, they'd broken themselves. And I'd built something better from the pieces they left behind. We sat together in comfortable silence as darkness fell completely, both of us at peace with the past and excited for whatever came next. Several months later, Riza and I celebrated our first wedding anniversary at the same Italian restaurant, where we'd first realized we were developing real feelings for each other. We sat at the same table, if you can believe it. I'd called ahead and requested it specifically. "You know what's crazy?" Riza said, reaching across the table to take my hand. "A year ago, we were still trying to figure out if this was real or just two hurt people clinging to each other. And now," she smiled, "now I know it's the most real thing I've ever had." I squeezed her hand. The symbolism wasn't lost on either of us, taking something that started as a strategic alliance against the people who'd betrayed us and transforming it into genuine love and partnership. What Francis and Emily had destroyed, they'd inadvertently helped us build. 2 weeks after our anniversary, I received another promotion at Fort Campbell, made me a sergeant first class in a training battalion, no more deployments, just teaching the next generation of soldiers. My commanding officer, Lieutenant Colonel Bradford, pulled me aside after the ceremony. "Whitlock, I want you to know something," he said. "Your record speaks for itself. But what really impressed me was how you handled your personal situation a couple years back. A lot of men would have let that break them, turn them bitter. You kept your integrity intact. That's the mark of real character." "Thank you, sir," I said. "I had good people around me. That's leadership too, knowing who to trust. Congratulations, Sergeant First Class." Riza was thriving in her role as assistant principal. She'd come home with stories about difficult student situations she'd handled, teachers she'd mentored, programs she was implementing. The respect she'd earned from both staff and students was obvious. She was meant for this work in a way teaching had never quite fit. One night over dinner, she brought up the conversation we'd been dancing around for months. "I think I'm ready," she said quietly, "to start trying. For a family." I looked up from my plate, my heart doing something complicated in my chest. "Yeah? Yeah. I want to do this with you, Michael. I want us to build something together that's ours. Not because we're supposed to, not because of timing or pressure, but because we're actually ready, because we're a team." "We are a team," I agreed. "And I want that too." We approached parenthood the way we'd approached everything else, as partners with the kind of maturity and genuine commitment our previous marriages had completely lacked. A few days later, Stephen dropped by the house to help me fix a fence post. He mentioned, almost casually, that he'd seen Emily at a big box store wearing a retail uniform. "Lost another nursing job?" I asked. "Apparently. Heard she's working at that discount place off Highway 41, barely making minimum wage." I hammered the post into the ground, feeling nothing. No satisfaction, no pity. Just nothing. "Her family still talking to her?" I asked. "From what Vilma hears, not much. They're ashamed, Michael. What she did to a deployed soldier, that doesn't go away, especially not in a town like this. Emily lived alone," Stephen told me. "The few times she'd tried dating, the relationships had fallen apart when her past came to light. Turned out most decent men didn't want to build a future with a woman who'd betrayed her husband while he was serving in Afghanistan. Actions have permanent consequences. Emily was learning that the hard way. Francis's situation was equally bleak. His day labor work was inconsistent. Some weeks he'd get 3 days of work, other weeks nothing. The medical debt from his DUI accident was crushing him financially. He'd never escape it, not at the wages he was pulling. His brother Tommy still refused to speak to him. His parents maintained minimal contact, but their relationship with Francis was permanently damaged. You don't betray your wife and destroy 2 marriages without consequences that ripple through your entire family. Francis had tried to rebuild multiple times, but he kept failing. Trapped by debt, damaged reputation, and the natural consequences of his choices. I saw them occasionally around Clarksville. It's a small enough town that complete avoidance is impossible. But these encounters meant nothing to me. I had no anger left, no desire for further revenge. I'd moved so far beyond that chapter of my life that Francis and Emily were simply irrelevant. Ghosts from a past that no longer had any power over me. One Saturday afternoon, I was at the hardware store picking up supplies for a project when someone called my name. I turned to see Tommy McGraw approaching cautiously, like he wasn't sure how I'd react. "Michael," he said, "can I talk to you for a minute?" "Sure, Tommy." He shifted his weight, uncomfortable. "I just wanted to say I'm sorry for what Francis did. Our whole family is ashamed of him. What he did to you, Teresa, it was disgraceful." "I appreciate that," I said. "But you don't need to apologize for Francis's choices. Those were his alone." Tommy nodded, then hesitated. "He's struggling pretty badly, Michael. I know he doesn't deserve your help or anything, but I don't know. Maybe there's some way you could show some mercy?" I looked at Tommy, a decent guy caught in his brother's mess, and kept my voice calm but firm. "Francis made his choices knowing the potential consequences," I said. "He chose to sleep with my wife while I was deployed. He chose to betray Riza. He chose to destroy 2 marriages. I'm not responsible for rescuing him from those consequences, Tommy. That's on him." Tommy nodded slowly. Yeah, you're right. He's my brother, you know? I get it. And I don't hold any of this against you or your family. But Francis has to live with what he did. That's justice, not cruelty. We shook hands, and Tommy walked away looking like he'd expected that answer but needed to try anyway. That evening, I told Riza about the encounter while we were making dinner together. "Do you feel any guilt?" she asked, chopping vegetables. "About how badly Francis is struggling?" I thought about it carefully while I seasoned the chicken. "No," I finally said. "I don't feel guilt. I feel justice. Francis and Emily made deliberate choices to betray the people who trusted them most. I just made sure they faced appropriate consequences. That's not something to feel guilty about." "Good," Riza said firmly. "Because they deserve everything they're getting." Later that night, we sat together in our living room, me on the couch and Riza curled up against my side. "So I've been thinking about baby names," she said. "Yeah? If it's a girl, maybe something classic. Elizabeth maybe, or Caroline." "I like both of those," I said. "What about a boy?" We talked through names, then shifted to discussing possible home renovations, turning the spare bedroom into a nursery, maybe adding a deck out back. Then we planned a vacation for the fall, before we'd potentially have a baby to worry about. And sitting there talking about our future together, I realized something important. This was what winning actually looked like. Not Francis struggling with debt and loneliness, though that was satisfying. Not Emily working retail and living alone, though that felt like justice. Winning looked like this: Riza and me, thriving, building something genuine and lasting that neither Francis nor Emily could destroy or diminish. A real partnership. A real future. "I love you," I said suddenly. Riza looked up at me, her eyes soft. "I love you too." I held her close, and the chapter of revenge closed completely. The chapter of genuine happiness continued forward into a bright, unlimited future. I believe stories such as this find us for a reason. If this one touches you, please subscribe. I share a new one every day. In the meantime, there are 2 stories on the screen that are even better.